Hi everybody. I just wanted to do kind of a catch-up video. I haven't done a video in a minute. So quick catch-up as to what I've been doing, where I'm headed, and it's kind of interesting. I'll show you a few of my purchases recently, and I have given into consumerism a little bit. I preach about it a little bit, so I need to be honest. And I am a human, and I do like cards. But I feel like I'm still doing all right. They all have a purpose. They all have a reason. And I have said no to a couple of decks that I really was like, I want them. I want them. Just such as, I think it's called Journey into the Hidden Realms now. I used to have that deck. Also, oh, what was the other one? The Shadowscapes. And I've had all these decks in the past, and I never use them. But here I am trying to convince myself I need them again. And I'm glad I didn't convince myself. You know, I do not need those. I know where they're going to end up, on a shelf not being used, and that's not my purpose. So every deck I'm getting right now are decks that I do intend to use and I think will be helpful in my tarot studies, which is something I'm really currently diving back into, is actually studying aspects of the tarot. I'm really happy to be back in this space that I'm in right now in my life. We'll see where I go with it. So recent purchases. The Tarocco, I'll get these out of here. The Tarocco Soprafino. I had the Il Manigello version. I still have it. But I took it to my ex's house. This was years ago. And it was in its pouch, my crocheted pouch. But his dog got a hold of it when we weren't looking and ruined 5 or 6 of the cards. So I still have it on a shelf elsewhere, with cards missing, or not missing, but it's just too ruined to use, unfortunately. And that really sucks when that happens to a deck, when you ruin just a few cards. But unfortunately, that's like, what are you gonna do? Especially with a deck such as the Soprafino, you know, spend, what is it now, $50 to $80, you know, depending on a new one, just for those few extra cards. I mean, it's a bummer. But I did decide to get is this US Games? Lo Scarabeo, sorry. It's Lo Scarabeo edition of the Soprafino. It's decently priced. I've heard good things about it. It does have pretty good card stock. It is numbered, so it's a limited edition. I got 2,284, and I believe there are 3,000. Oh, no, 2,999. So there's roughly 800 left. If you want one, get one while they're, you know, available. Not much to say about it. I like it. It's not much different, obviously, than the Il Manigello, besides the cardstock is not as papery. The one criticism I guess I have, and I'll point out, is that, you know, the backs are just copy and pasted on. They all have the same backs, for the most part. So you get the aged looking, but they're all in the same spot. You know, they're all on that left-hand side. And that's something I would have rather than not have done that on the back at all. You see that in a few other decks when they try to age it, and all they really do is put marks on, you know, it's just the same back. So it doesn't really look aged. It looks copied. You know, it's, you know, unless I had them like this and I ended up, you know, spilling coffee or something on this one, you know, like, I don't know. But, I mean, it's not a break, you know. I love this deck. I've always loved the Soprafino. We won't go through it. It's a pip deck. It's a Marseilles style deck. Plenty of walkthroughs out there. Look at that world. El Mundo. I mean, the trumps are just beautiful. So, I mean, so are the pips. Just beautiful coloring. So I'm very glad that I got it. I'll keep better track of this one. I like the little box that it came in. It's very nice. Pretty little box. So yeah, I got that. Because one, I just loved it, and I did want to have a copy of it because it's one of my favorite, and because I won a Marseille. So speaking of Marseille decks, this is the only other one I got. This is called the one or I don't know, one. I think it's one JJ Swiss deck by Stuart Kaplan. This was printed by A.G. Moeller, and this I got, guys, for like 20 something dollars. I don't think there were any other bidders on eBay. It's got a little bit of scuff here, but it is a vintage copy. You can tell just by the box that it's in. The cardstock is really nice. And I basically got this because it's a little bit more traditional. Not exactly, but it's different than the Soprafino. It's got more of the primary colors, but they're muted enough that I can handle it. I do not like super primary colors that are like intense in-your-face colors. And this has those, but they're more muted, especially since it's an aged deck. So it is, I can handle it. It's an iconic deck. People say all things, different things about it. Some people love it, some people hate it. It was a lot of people's first deck. There's our Fool. And that is a more kind of traditional. Something you're going to find in older decks, I think, is the Fool depicted as more of a jester, a court jester. More the naivety of the Fool rather than the innocence of the Fool, I guess. So it's got some great cards in here. I do, the pips are very traditional. They're laid out just like Marseille style decks lay them out. I really like the moon card in here, and it did come with the 2 extra blank cards, which is really cool. No instruction book, but I don't need it. I can find the moon really quick. I just love it. Yeah, it's not going to be easy to find, is it? Because I'm wanting it. I want it, so it's not going to be here. There it is, La Lune. It's got the whole like Romeo and Juliet thing going on, so I think, I don't know, that's a cool, it's a different aspect to the moon card than we're used to seeing. So this is more like the fantasy side of the moon to me. Like, kind of love typically doesn't work out. It's a fantasy. So that's more of a warning. The moon, does have a warning in it. As much as I love it, it can be deceitful sometimes. Anyway, there it is. I love that the backs aren't stark. They're the same backs as you'll find on, even the current Rider-Waite deck. Especially, the older original versions. But it's got this like peachy pink tone on it, which I just think is really cool. So, oh, I put it in the wrong way, didn't I? So that should be it on Marseille decks. I don't need any more, guys. Don't let me buy any more. I've got like a fairly traditional, not exactly, but those who know about Marseille decks will know what I'm saying. Fairly traditional, and I mean, this is a traditional. Soprafino is not new, but I got it more for the artwork, just because I love it so much. And so if I was ever to use Marseille style, and eventually I will, and I'll get more into that, it would be one of these two, and I'm very happy to have those. The other ones I got, well, we'll talk about this one really quick. I mean, this one's pretty. It never called to me a lot. Not a lot, but I looked into it. I think I ran across a YouTube video, and then I was doing some research on it and looking at some reviews. If you don't know anything about it, you probably do. If you don't, it's based just on folklore, fairy tales, myths, every scene. I think it has a bigger book that you can buy, but they are described briefly in this small book in full color. It's a nice little book. So like Sleeping Beauty, a lot of these I do not know, to be honest. They come from different cultures all over the world. So there's Sun God Ra, Princess Kaguya, which is a Japanese fairy tale. And then some are very popular that we know, Rapunzel, So why I got this deck? For 2 reasons. I think that it's cool to be able to, when I am studying a card, so say I'm studying the Fool here, I'll bring out my Fool from the Soprafino, I'll bring it out from my Rider-Waite, I'll bring it out from a Thoth deck, you know, I'll bring it out from different decks, and so I can study kind of and get different meanings from different artwork. And what I loved about this deck is there is an actual story that goes behind the card, which can give us an even deeper meaning into the card. So when we're thinking about the Fool here, I can think of the whole story of the Little Mermaid, which is not the story. I mean, we can think of Disney Little Mermaid, but the Little Mermaid is not just... It's a bit of a darker tale if we're going to talk about the real fairy tale. So when I think about the Little Mermaid, I can think about... the actions that she took, the thoughts that she had, what transpired in her life as a result of, you know, the Fool mentality that, you know, she had at some points. So there's an entire story. This looks like Cinderella, but it's not. There's an entire story that, in feeling that goes with each card, which if you can meditate on the story, can go a long way into getting different interpretations of that card, Beauty and the Beast. So it's not just the lovers. You know, we think of the entire story of Beauty and the Beast, and there's so many different facets that can be taken from that story and transposed into the archetype of the lovers, which is so cool. So, and I do love the artwork. I'm not going to lie. It is a beautiful deck. The cardstock is really nice, so that's the main reason I got it. And while I was debating on whether or not I wanted to get it for those reasons, I mean, it's a cheap deck on Amazon to get. I think I'm going to get a lot of benefits out of just meditating on the storylines. But a lot of people were saying that it has a really heavy energy, that some people really couldn't handle it and had to resell it, or they even returned it to Amazon, or they had to cleanse the deck multiple times. And they said the energy was just really heavy. I think some even said like dark. And that's not a feeling you initially get from this card. When you think of fairy tales, you think of lightheartedness, you think of Disney, you know. But in reality, what we are doing is taking some really deep mythological stories, fairy tale stories from all different cultures over all different time periods. And what you get is, I can see how it can be very dark. It can be very deep. It can be very conflicting. It can be very sad. You know, we are taking in aspects of these cultures, and those could be very, very heavy subjects. And you see some of the pain and some of the trials that some of these fairy tales went through, some of these mythological beings went through. And I think that I can feel some of that energy. And I haven't worked with this deck yet, and I will. And when I do, I'll do a more thorough, see? Donkey skin she's wearing. I'll do a more thorough examination of how I felt about the energy and what that, you know, how that affected me. So I thought that was very interesting. You know, I'm not afraid of, I don't want negative energy, but I'm not afraid of some really heavy energy, and seeing what I can do with that and how it affects me, because we don't see that in a lot of decks. Like offhand, like I think of the Marielle as being a really so heavy deck. And this doesn't feel like that right offhand, but again, I have not really gotten into it, so that'll be interesting. That back. The other two decks I got are Thoth-based decks. Thoth, whatever you want to call it. I've heard it all sorts of ways. I call it the Thoth. And that's just how I'm going to pronounce it, I think. But I don't know what hit me. But a couple weeks ago, I decided to start looking into the Thoth system a little bit more. I think it started with the Zillich. And I was looking at just 10 decks because I love 10 decks. I think they're great to throw in your satchel and take places. You don't have to worry about them. You know, they're super protected. They're small, so you can do larger readings in smaller spaces. And these are probably the only tins. I've looked at the other tins. I don't want any of them as much as I love the idea of having 10 tins on my shelf. Again, I'm trying not to give in to consumerism. I don't need them. I'm not going to use them. These two I will use. So I love the vintage 70s, 80s vibes of those decks. The Zillich, I teetered on. I never got it back when, you know, I was doing really into tarot a couple years ago. It's one deck I never bought. And I always loved the artwork. And one of the reasons I didn't get it was because I knew it had more of a Thoth-based system. It had all these words at the bottom, you know, 6 of Swords as science, 5 of Discs as worry. And I never really liked either the idea of having a one-word explanation for the minor cards. It seemed too constricted for me. So I really started thinking about the Thoth when I saw this deck and debating, you know, whether or not to buy this deck. And I thought, this isn't as I've never really liked the artwork of the original Thoth tarot. It's intense. It is intense. That's the only way I'm going to say it right now. It's the only explanation I can give. And I feel like it's artwork that people usually either hate or love. So I thought this is much lighter. I love watercolors, and it's a much lighter feeling deck, much more beautiful, you know, in my mind than the Thoth Tarot in a way, in its own way. So I decided to buy it, and I immediately did love it, and started thinking about the Thoth Tarot more, and wondering for the first time, why are these differences made in the Thoth Tarot? And did he have a point? Aleister Crowley gets a bad rap a lot of times in the tarot community, in certain aspects, in certain, you know, places in the tarot community. You know, he was a very, very, very intelligent man, and he was part of, you know, the magical society of the, you know, and there's just you know, there are some aspects, I can't get into it here, this isn't what this video is about, but some people did see him as a darker man, you know, doing, you know, kind of darker magic and darker themed, and so that's why I was always kind of hesitant. But I was like, well, you know, I talk to people about the tarot, who will initially say, you know, it's witchcraft and it's of the devil and blah, 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 because they know nothing about it. And I thought to myself, well, I'm doing the same thing with the Thoth Tarot. You know, I think it's just kind of a more sinister deck, and he was a more sinister man. So I've always refused to look into it further. While I'm talking about this, we'll put this deck away. You've seen enough of it. And I thought, well, I'm doing the same thing. So I thought I need to give Aleister Crowley and the Thoth Tarot a break. It is a huge part of what tarot is today, and what, you know, where it went during its time, and how he interpreted it and how he changed it. And for a lot of people, Thoth is the only system they will use. It's the only system they love, you know. And so I decided to jump in. That is what I'm doing right now, guys, is studying the Thoth Tarot. And this is another beautiful, there is a certain beauty in these cards, and I don't want to get them out of order. I'm leaving this one in order so I can study them. It's a harsher kind of art. I don't know how to explain. It's more geometrical, just like the Thoth Tarot is. Oh, these cards are bending, probably because they're a little bit cold. I don't like that. So it's very much geometrical. It has a lot of primary colors in it. I think that unlike the Zillich is like more RWS Thoth. And this is more Thoth. This is, I think that the artist, you know, and I don't have a Thoth deck yet. I do have one coming. I traded a couple of decks that I know I'm not going to use for the Thoth and the Hermetic Tarot, because I'm very much getting into Kabbalistic side of tarot, and you know, the Tree of Life and the Zephyroth, and all that fun esoteric stuff that I never thought I'd get into. I just now am really diving into it and really feeling it. So to me, it is more of the adult version of the Thoth. It is much more intense. And there are deeper esoteric meanings. There are places that the RWS doesn't go and doesn't touch on. And I do want to know all these aspects of the tarot and its artwork and where it came from. And I'm telling you guys, so far, it is making, it is very deep, and it makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad that I am actually catching on to it, I mean, as quickly as one can, I think. It's not overly, I can't, don't get me wrong, like, once I get into it, I think that it will get extremely complex. But, okay, enough of these cards. You know, they're beautiful. They are very beautiful. I think they're watercolor as well. I'm not positive, don't quote me on that, but I think that they are. And it's a beautiful, I think it's a good intermediary, or it will be, once I get the Thoth Tarot. I think it just has a little bit of a lighter feel, you know. So if I feel the need for that, I can go to this deck. And I've heard nothing just, you know, but great things about this deck from the people that have owned it, and that I've seen reviews on. Just, you know, that Pamela and Joyce Eakins did an amazing job of creating a new Thoth Tarot deck. We'll see. I think there are some things that deviate. I don't think all the names on the cards are the same as the Thoth Tarot. So, after getting into Thoth Tarot, I really decided I need to be studying first and foremost with the Thoth Tarot deck. The original one done by Crowley and Harris. Aleister Crowley directed, and Frida Harris did the artwork, and they devoted a lot of time and energy to it. This is the book that I am starting with. And I'm also going to, I haven't yet, but I am going to order Aleister Crowley's Thoth. But I went back and forth on which book to purchase first. And the reason I want to study first with an actual Thoth Tarot deck is for the same reason that I suggest beginners first study with the Rider-Waite deck. It was, you know, it's the original. It's the original that we kind of, obviously we know the Rider-Waite is not the original tarot deck. Not at all. But it is the original for which most deck systems you're going to see are based upon. It was the deck that first incorporated, not first, I'm using that term loosely. I'm not going to go deeper because there are decks that did use scenic pips before, but it really was the first deck that emphasized the scenes in the minors, and that brought that to the brought it into society, that made it popular. It is the deck that made the tarot popular again. So it is always the deck, it is the first deck I hadn't studied with, and it's always the one I recommend. So for the same reason, I feel like if I'm going to study the Thoth, I need to use the original Thoth deck first. And then once I know the meanings and can feel that in the original Thoth, then I can go on to be using these decks. So I did it backwards, but I'm doing it, you know, I have these decks to look forward to use, and then to see how they interact, how they, how much of the Thoth they actually took and put into these decks, and what changes they didn't make or made different, you know. So I'm getting the Thoth on Wednesday, I believe it's coming. In the meantime, I have gotten a very good jump start on this. So far, I'm loving this book. I decided on this book after doing some, you know, looking at reviews and watching some videos on it. And it was a video from nobody here. There's a small silence there, isn't there? And I'm gonna cry. Isn't that ridiculous? Some of us do. I mean, she's still around. but she was a big part of my tarot journey a few years ago in many different aspects. And I just, I appreciate her to death. And I watched her review on what book she got to begin looking at the Thoth Tarot. And it was this book, and it was another one I don't really recognize, and then it was Aleister Crowley's The Thoth Tarot, And she said, and this is my thinking process too, was Aleister Crowley's The Thoth Tarot book is intense. His book is really super intense. There's not a lot that I don't think I would not understand right off the bat. And I didn't think I was quite ready for that. I felt like that his book needed an introduction, and that is exactly what nobody here on her channel said when researching the best books for a beginner. And I think this is the one that she said, this is probably your best bet. He is an Aleister Crowley fanboy. I think she said that, and I do agree after reading his introductions to everything. But you take that for what it is, and I think he does a beautiful job of... Okay, so here's where introduction to the cards, kind of. But we have, it doesn't look like that much, but it's the perfect amount. It's a lot. It's a bigger introduction than we get in a lot of tarot books. But he gave me a brief overview of everything that I need to know to get started with the Thoth. Little bits of things you should know. And I think, from what I know about the Thoth Tarot so far and how he set this up and everything he said, that he did a beautiful job at just the basics that I'm going to need to know to be able to study the beginnings of the cards. So he gets into the Hermetic Rose Cross. And it's amazing that I didn't know this stuff before, and just how deep it gets and how beneficial I think it can be to take this in when learning the tarot. It's certainly not for a beginner tarot reader, but intermediate for sure. Like I wish I had done, but I don't. I think that I am at the right point in my studies and in my knowledge of tarot that this was good for me at this point, and it wouldn't maybe have been as good a few years ago. So Tree of Life, the colors that are used, and how, because Lady Frida Harris used the colors in the cards to depict certain things. It's so hard to explain, but she used coloring, just like we would use we use symbology. Like she used symbology, she also used color. So there is just that brief overview, but just enough without cramming your brain full of too much material, and without overwhelming you. There is just enough in this book to give you that head start that I'm going to need to start learning the cards. And so far, I've gotten through all of that, and I'm very proud of myself for getting through all of that. A little bit of astrology, just what you need to know. But I'm very much in study mode right now. So I bought this book as well to start learning the basics of astrology, because that's a fundamental, I think, for the tarot and even for the Rider-Waite system. We have astrology correspondences in the tarot deck, and it can give a deeper meaning to your knowledge of the cards. So I think I've gotten to the Hierophant is where I'm at. I'm very proud of myself. I've only had this book for 2 days, and I have just gone to town on it. And I've gotten through everything I need to know. But, of course, what it's done is makes me want to... I promised myself I'm getting through this book first, but I'm going to buy, a book on... is it called Kabbalism? That's how much of a beginner I am. The Kabbalistic themes and religious aspects. The Order of the Golden Dawn had a lot to do with what we're seeing in the Thoth Tarot, and that was what Crowley was very much a part of. Was there was a magical society, I forget what it's called now, that he was a member of. Then we have Hermeticism and the Hermetic Rose Cross. So that is stuff that I will be buying further literature on once I have found my feet with the cards first. I think it is important that I found what I needed to know. I can look at the cards and get a general feel for them. And then once I am familiar with the Thoth Tarot cards, then maybe I can start looking into like Kabbalism and the Hermetic order and Hermeticism in a deeper context than what I do now. I think I will benefit more with the order I'm doing things now. And I'm not for sure, and that's why I'll keep you guys appraised of what I'm doing to see if I feel like things panned out all right, or if maybe there was a different order I could have done things in. So I will keep you apprised of my journey, so that if you're interested, you know what's working, what's not working. I can't wait to dive into this. I did start reading and then decided I would get into the Thoth a little bit more and then go back. Because the Thoth does incorporate concepts of Hermeticism and the order of the Golden Dawn. Is that right? I think so. So I think it'll be beneficial to know a little bit more about all that before I get into this great big Bible of a book. So far, I can't. Oh my God, it's amazing. I think I only got through the Magician. Is that where I am? What was that? I don't know. Yeah, the Magician. That's as far as I got. I'm not even all the way through the Magician. So I got through the Fool and the Magician, and it's an amazing book. But I think I'll get more out of it if I know a little bit more about these systems first. So, my God, my mouth is dry. Oh, I have talked myself to death and you guys to death. So, you know, look forward to a little bit more of some esoteric talk in my videos, some Thoth talk. I will keep you apprised of what I'm learning and how I'm using and what I'm thinking of the Thoth Tarot. And I'm just very excited right now to be diving more into a lot of these systems. And I feel prepared, and I'm just full on in study mode. And I'm very happy to be where I am right now. So, I don't know. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I think I've given you all the information I really know at this point. But, you know, I'll keep you apprised of what's going on and how it's working out for me. And I'll see you in the next video.